Hey guys, Trainer DC here, coming at you with another video. During the Pokemon Winds and Waves reveal back on Pokemon Day of this year, one of the details that got revealed to us is just like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, our player character will look a little bit different depending on the version of the game that we're playing. If you play Pokemon Winds, you'll be wearing a white aesthetic with a cowboy hat, while Pokemon Waves has a more dark blue / purple aesthetic with a more surfer looking outfit. One thing that people have been discussing in terms of these outfits is that there are two unique logos depending on which version of the game you have. If you're playing Pokemon Winds, your clothing is outfitted with this logo that has a dot in the middle of it with kind of like this little wind animation going over it. But if you're playing Pokemon Waves, as you can see on the player character's hat, you'll have this other little dot with kind of like a wave motion going underneath it. This obviously is going to symbolize something within the versions of the game, whether it be a different hotel we're staying at depending on our version, whether it be maybe an environmental agency we're working for, who knows. But one thing that is interesting about this that is present with both logos is that circle that is either above the waves or below the winds. That circle is present throughout, and I think, at least in my mind, it's pretty clear that that circle is supposed to represent the sun. So I'm wondering if this is going to tell us a little bit more about the lore of this game and just the third legendary in general for this game. I made a video speculating on the legendaries for Pokemon Winds and Waves. If you haven't seen it, I'll leave a card up above to that video. But in that video, I discussed how I'm pretty confident that the two legendaries are going to be a flying serpent and a water serpent respectively. I speculated on the typings in that video, whether they could be flying fairy type or maybe a water poison or water psychic type. Check out the video if you want to hear me go fully in depth on it, because it's based on information that we actually got to see during the initial reveal, but that's neither here nor there. But for argument's sake, let's just say we are getting a flying serpent and a water serpent for Pokemon Winds and Waves. Even if they aren't serpents, it's pretty clear that the Winds legendary is going to have to do with wind and the Waves legendary is going to have to do with the water, the waves. That's pretty clear, right? Regardless of what you think these legendaries are going to be. The thing is here that in both instances of this logo for Winds and this logo for Waves, the sun is present. So is it possible that we're going to see the third legendary that is taking after the sun in some essence, whether it be a third serpent that is kind of a fire serpent that's maybe worshipping the sun or is like a sun god that's being worshipped by the people of this region, or whether it be some other sort of fire creature that is sun based or just like a phoenix or something. I think that might be the direction they go in for the third legendary, because it's very clear to me that this game is going to be very focused in nature, right? And I feel like what everyone is saying right now, that we have winds, the sky, we have waves, the sea. Naturally, the third legendary is going to be land or the earth or Gaia, which is actually the project title for Pokemon Winds and Waves, which might very well be the case. Like, if you told me a week ago to tell you what the third legendary was going to be, I would have said it's going to be a land-based ground type Pokemon, maybe a ground type serpent to basically represent the earth, because you have the air, the wind, you have the sea, the waves, and then you will then have the land, the earth, and those will be our trio for Pokemon Winds and Waves. However, after diving into these logos, it's very clear that the sun is present here, that this little orb that is surrounded by the winds and waves respectively is supposed to be the sun. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we figured out our third legendary for this game, either a land, Gaia, ground type Pokemon, which is very plausible still, but more likely than not, I think it's going to have to do with the sun. We're going to have the sun represented in some way in this game, which interestingly enough, you might be saying to yourself, Trainer DC, why would they do the sun? They did the sun in Generation 7, Pokemon Sun and Moon. Solgaleo is the sun legendary and Lunala is the moon legendary. Why would they go back to that once again? And look, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you to say, yeah, they have done that before, you're right, but just thematically, given that this game is based on Southeast Asia, I feel like a sun god, a sun themed legendary would work really well for this region. There's a lot of mythology within this part of the world that we're going to see present in this game. There's even the Bakunawa, I believe it's called, which is a sea serpent that eats the moon. That very well might be the inspiration for the Waves Sea Serpent legendary that we probably will end up getting if my theory is correct based on that video a while back. Again, if you haven't seen it, check it out. There's also just serpents within this mythology as well, within this part of the world. world. So why not have there be 3 serpents in this game? One that's representative of the sky, the air, the winds, and one that's representative of the sea, the water, the waves, and then a third that is representative of fire, the sun, or maybe even space. Because this is something that quite possibly might be connected to this game. We know that there's supposed to be Pokemon from another dimension called Majin according to the leaks, right? We know that this game, if that is the case, is going to have some sort of celestial significance or just multiversal significance, because we're going to have to travel to another dimension, or these Pokemon are traveling from another dimension, very similar again to the parallel of Ultra Beast and Sun and Moon. There are so many parallels between Winds and Waves and Sun and Moon, it is crazy. So it would not surprise me at all to see our third legendary, whether it be a serpent or something else entirely, be based on the sun. Again, yeah, could you say it's repetitive to Solgaleo? Sure, but I'm assuming it's going to be a completely different animal that is just a fire god from the sun. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen here. Whether it be another serpent, then we have a trio of serpents, whether it be a different type of legendary, maybe it's kind of like Necrozma, how Solgaleo and Lunala are a bat and a lion respectively, and then Necrozma is kind of this just weird light dragon creature. They could do something like that as well, and we've seen this recently with Pokemon titles where the third legendary, if there is one, doesn't really have to do with the other two. Like, they haven't really been doing trios like they used to. The last real trio that we got was in Sun and Moon with Solgaleo, Lunala, and Necrozma. But then if you look at Sword and Shield, we had Zamazenta and Zacian, and then Eternatus. Eternatus is not a part of that trio. Eternatus is very much so the villain of the game, its own solo legendary, and the same thing can be said with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. You know, we had Koraidon and Miraidon, which are basically a past and future version of Cyclizar. Cyclizar is not a legendary Pokemon, it's just a regular Pokemon. The third legendary for that game was Terapagos, and Terapagos, I would argue, has very little, if anything, to do with Koraidon and Miraidon. So we might see another situation like that, where maybe we get this sea serpent, we get this flying serpent, but then this third sun legendary has absolutely nothing to do with those two serpent Pokemon and is something else entirely in and of itself. Maybe it is a Majin from another dimension and it somehow ties into the story of Pokemon Winds and Waves. The last thing I'll say on this is, regardless of whether I'm right or not, if we end up getting a fire type sun based legendary for the third legendary in this trio, or it ends up being an earth ground type based legendary like people were theorizing before, and I was even theorizing before, or at least I was thinking of, I hadn't actually made a full video on it yet. Whatever form this third legendary takes, I just hope they don't save it for the DLC like they did for Scarlet and Violet. That was one thing I really didn't love at the time when Scarlet and Violet came out. It just felt like the game was kind of incomplete at launch because we couldn't capture this third legendary that was tied to the gimmick. It was saved for the DLC and locked behind that season pass. I really hope they don't do that. I hope they handle the DLC more akin to what they did in Sword and Shield, where it's an extension of the base game with new legendary Pokemon with new lore that, yes, it ties into the main game, but it's not exactly like they're holding stuff back for the DLC, if that makes sense. I want the DLC to enhance the game while the game itself is a full, complete experience. Anyways, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. Do you guys think I'm onto something that these logos both have the sun around them? Obviously, the sun is there for some reason. This is going to signify something, and what I'm thinking it signifies is the third legendary. Do you think I'm onto something here, or do you think I'm grasping at straws and you think there's going to be a different Pokemon that ends up being the third legendary, maybe even based on the earth, based on the land, like I had said earlier in this video, or maybe you think it's going to be based on something else entirely? Let me know down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from Trainer DC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.